Hey everybody, I'm Glenn and I'm a volunteer for Yes on One. I am an Amendment 1 supporter in Tennessee, and I wanted to take a few minutes to share with you some information that I hope clarifies whether or not we license abortion facilities in the state of Tennessee. To do that, we'll look first at the Guttmacher Institute, which is a bastion of pro-abortion information and research. This comes from their website, and this is a brief that tells us about abortion in the state of Tennessee. Specifically, where do women obtain abortions in the state of Tennessee? They begin by showing us the abortion providers that are in the United States. 1,720 abortion providers in the U.S. And this is not just one type of provider. If you read further, you'll see that a certain percentage were hospitals, still other were clinics that performed in the course of their services. More than half of their services or patient visits were for abortion specifically. Furthermore, were clinics where fewer than half of all visits were for abortion. And even further than that were private physicians' offices in the United States. If you look down at the next line, it tells us that there, at this point, were 14 abortion providers in Tennessee, and 9 of those were clinics. This is important to note as we look further into who provides abortions in Tennessee and what type of licensure or regulation is placed on them. Detractors of Tennessee's Amendment 1 have pointed at Tennessee Code Annotated 68-11-201 as evidence in the code that abortion facilities are required to be licensed in the state of Tennessee. In this part of the statute, it defines, among other things, what an ambulatory surgical treatment center is. And part of that definition is that an ambulatory surgical treatment center is where a medical or surgical procedure is used to terminate a pregnancy. This definition includes an exception, however. It tells us way down at the bottom that excluded from this are private physicians, dentist offices, except those private physicians' offices in which a substantial number of medical or surgical pregnancy terminations are performed. What it's saying is that if a practice provides a substantial number of medical or surgical pregnancy terminations, then they must meet the same requirements as an ambulatory surgical treatment center. And Tennessee does license ambulatory surgical treatment centers. The problem with that is that due to the Court of Appeals in Nashville, in the case of Tennessee Department of Health versus Dr. Gary Boyle, it was determined that that statute is not constitutional as it applies to abortion providers. And we're looking at the first page of that decision here, and it tells us specifically and clearly that this issue is in the case of the constitutionality of a Tennessee statute that requires a private clinic that performs a substantial number of abortions to acquire a certificate of need and to be licensed by the Tennessee Department of Health. And what did they determine? Well, a lower court had determined that Dr. Boyle's standalone clinic, his private clinic, did have to obtain a certificate of need from the Health Facilities Commission, and it did have to have a license from the Department of Health. However, the court in this case determined that the statute violates relevant provisions of the United States and Tennessee constitutions. So they declared Tennessee Code Annotated 68-11-201 to be unconstitutional. and reversed a contempt charge that was levied against this facility for not obtaining that level of certification. Looking at the next slide, which is further down in the document that delivers the appellate court ruling, we'll see that the statute in question is Tennessee Code Annotated 68-11-201, which is just what we read earlier on a different web page. And this part continues to define that for the purposes of the appellate court decision. Reading further down in the court decision, we see that the court concluded that the statute, Tennessee Code 68-11-201, in defining abortion providers as ambulatory surgical treatment centers, adversely impacts a constitutionally protected right without a compelling reason to justify it, and it cites as part of its reasoning Planned Parenthood of Middle Tennessee versus Sundquist, which is the Supreme Court decision that Amendment 1 seeks to remedy by amending our state constitution. What this did, in effect, was remove abortion providers from being considered ambulatory surgical treatment centers, which are licensed by the state of Tennessee Department of Health and do require a certificate of need. That means they have to go before the Health Facilities Commission and show that there's a need for their facility. They no longer have to do that. And that means that abortion facilities are no longer required to be licensed. And without a requirement to be licensed, there's no requirement to be inspected, to review records, or to do anything to ensure that there's a level of care consistent with, in this case, what it used to be considered the standard of care, being a surgical treatment center. For further evidence that abortion facilities are not licensed or inspected in the state of Tennessee, there's a YouTube video entitled "Tennessee Health Department Acknowledges Licensure is Not Required." You see the link on the screen there as well, the link to the YouTube video. I hope you'll go there and check it out. It gives definitive testimony before the Tennessee Legislature Committee on Health and Human Services that there is, quote, no teeth, end quote, to ensure that abortion facilities are reporting accurately what happens, because there's no way that the department is able to require that abortion facilities conform to anything that they would expect, even reporting. How are we then to know that abortion facilities are accurately reporting what happens in the way of child deaths or in the way of injuries to women that come in seeking abortions and have abortions completed there? There's no way to know. There's no way to know if there's a safe and sanitary level of care being provided there. And this is a problem. This is a huge concern in our state. It's part of the reason we've become an abortion destination, where 25% of the abortions performed in Tennessee are done on out-of-state residents. And it's something that needs to be changed for the sake of women and certainly for the sake of their unborn children. So I hope that you'll consider this information, and that if you're a Tennessean on November 4th, you'll go and vote yes on Amendment 1, so that we, the people, through our elected representatives, can help restore life in the way of common sense protections for the women in our state and for unborn children. Thank you very much, and God bless you.